2018 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order. Second item on our agenda is the hearing of residents. I have a Mr. Tony Paulson that has signed up. Says you've signed up for the public hearing. You can speak at hearing of residents, or you can wait till the public hearing, whichever you prefer. Okay, public hearing then. All right then, is there anyone else that wishes to speak during the hearing of residents? All right, seeing no one, we'll move on to the next item. Item 3, consent agenda. 3A, minutes for the September 26, 2018 regular meeting. 3B, PC 2018-040, consider and act upon a request for approval of a final plat of the Augusta Fierro subdivision, an approximately 5-acre tract of land located at 6197 Fowle Road, City of Schertz, County. And item C, PC 2018-036, consider and act upon a request for approval of a final plat of the Winter Hill subdivision, lots 7 and 9, block 2, an approximately .343 acre tract of land located at the intersection of Dayland Heights and Harper Run, City of Schertz, Guadalupe County. Commissioners, any item that we need to pull for individual consideration? All right, let's see, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
All right, a motion by Commissioner Burrows. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Commissioner Ray. Any other comments or questions? All right, hearing none, we'll call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye. 6 ayes, no nays, motion passes. Next item on the agenda, item 4, items for individual consideration. Item PC 2018-022, consider and act upon a request for approval of a preliminary plat for the Freesiness Medical Care subdivision, an approximate 1.5 acre tract of land located generally approximately 220 feet southeast of the intersection of East Live Oak Road and FM 3009, Guadalupe County, Texas. Emily.
Good evening, Commissioners. So just to get your bearings, this is Live Oak Road and 3009, and the subject property here is identified in green and is currently undeveloped. The property is zoned office and professional, and they're requesting to preliminary plat in order to develop a commercial lot in order to build a medical office. The proposed lot does have frontage onto FM 3009, which you can see here. Since it is a TxDOT maintained roadway, they did review the plat, offered a letter of no objection to the plat, but did stipulate that they will only be allowed to have one access point onto 3009. The applicant has submitted a tree affidavit, which indicates that there are protected and heritage trees on the site that will be removed with development. Any mitigation and fees will be assessed with the site plan. The site is serviced by a City of Schertz water line, a 12-inch water line, a proposed 8-inch sewer line extension, CCMA, GVEC, AT&T, Spectrum, and CenterPoint Energy. The city engineer has reviewed and approved a preliminary drainage report for this lot. The sidewalks adjacent to 3009 were installed with the major sidewalk project. Those sidewalks will be maintained and will not be damaged or will be repaired with the development of the lot. As I had stated, TxDOT did offer a no objection to the plat, and staff is making a recommendation of approval.
All right then, Commissioners, comments, questions?
Do we know how they're going to enter and exit onto that property? Because they're right on the bend of 3009, and that's not as clear as you would think it is in heavy traffic.
So the existing proposal is kind of in this general area, but TxDOT will have to sign off with the site plan, basically saying that they're approving that access point, along with our engineering team as well.
Has there been any consideration about having that driveway further to the south and being a shared driveway with the adjacent parcel?
Not that I am aware of. So the two lots or the two properties on the other sides are both residentially zoned. They're not, when this property came in to do the office and professional, the adjacent properties were not interested in doing the rezone as well. So they're both residential. So at this time, it doesn't quite make sense to do a shared driveway. with a residential property.
Excuse me. Yeah, but they might want to consider moving that a little further south, because you got traffic merging off of Live Oak to the right. And then when the light is green, you got a lot of traffic coming down there. That's a short distance for them to jump out, especially if they want to take a left.
Yes, sir. I'll pass that on to the applicant.
So the other vacant lots here, all the way down to Patrick Henry, they're all residential? Is there any way that we can secure, I doubt that, excuse me, I doubt that they'll stay residential, but that's another meeting and another story. But is there any way that we could secure cross-access easement on this lot in the event the other lots are zoned, or change their zoning to commercial or something other than residential?
Not that I'm aware of. So we have the requirement if it's a commercial lot next to a commercial, they have to provide that cross lot, but not if it's residentially zoned.
And I'm just looking out in the future. If the lot on the corner and then the other two lots to the south develop, how many accesses are we going to have to 3009? It's going to be a nightmare down there. And it'd be nice. And the comments about moving the access further south would help address that at some time in the future. But I can't see 1, 2, 3, 4 more access points on 3009 in that short distance. That's going to be a nightmare to me. So you're not aware if there are any. Can we find out if there is a possibility at all?
So our code does not allow. Our code requires that you provide a cross-access easement between commercially zoned property. And so since the property on either side is not commercially zoned, we're not able to require that on this property.
Well, I'll just throw my 2 cents out there, Richard, because I agree with you 100%, but the problem is their hands are tied. And this comes back to more of this, when we brought it up the other, last month or so, when we brought it up to City Council, the whole idea of some preemptive zoning, because we all know well and good that, the Dietz house is still on that north corner, and it may stay there. That may stay residential, but you and I both know that nothing south of Fresenius is nobody's going to build a house on 3009. That you're absolutely right, is going to be commercial. So we need to find a way to pre-plan for commercial, okay?
Thought at some point we deleted all the R1s. No?
I don't understand the question.
Bob Dietz's lot is zoned R1. I thought the R1s were deleted.
The property to the south, I believe, is zoned R1, and the property to the north, I believe, is zoned R4, which is a multifamily lot.
Multifamily.
As well as the apartments to the north of it. I believe there's a 6-plex or 4-plex apartment just to the north of that along Live Oak.
But this one is still R1. Property. It's still R1. The property to the south, this one, it is still R1 today, along with the next property down.
All right, are there any other comments or questions?
You're not going to change either one.
I
of
just
these.
have a UDC clarification question, and please forgive me for not already knowing the answer to this. With the removal of heritage trees, or heritage and protected trees from the lot, and then the fees that are assessed, the landscape plan also calls for them to come back with a certain number of trees, correct?
Correct. So they'll still, when this lot is actually getting developed, it'll go through the full site plan process. We'll look at the landscaping. They'll have to meet all of the required landscaping. They also have to preserve 25% of the trees on the property, and then in excess, whatever they're removing, they have to pay for. If it's a protected size, 8-inch to 24, it's $100 an inch. Anything over 24 inches is $300 an inch. Yeah.
Is the applicant here this evening?
Nope.
No?
Previous procedure was if the applicant wasn't here, we tabled it.
If he's going to speak, can you please have him come to the microphone?
So this isn't a public hearing.
It's not a
Sorry.
public hearing, yes. I was just going to say that. All right, Commissioners, what we have before us is approval for a preliminary plat. Obviously, some things that we'd like to see done differently in the planning process on this regarding zoning and accessibility. However, this application does comply with the current UDC. And I will also reiterate Commissioner Greenwald's point that even though it's not a requirement, traditionally this body has tabled items that come up on our agenda where the applicant has decided not to be here for it. But this commission makes the motions. I just have to run the meeting. So I'll leave it at that. And if someone would like to make a motion, I'll like to hear one.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion, we table PC 2018-022. Request that the applicant attend the next scheduled meeting.
All right, I have a motion to table by Commissioner Greenwald. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A second by Commissioner Ray. Any other comments? All right, call for a vote.
Aye.
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 Nay.
Aye. Motion carries 5-1. And then next item on our agenda, 4B, item WA 2017-006, consider act upon a request for approval of a waiver to not connect to the public wastewater system for the Corbett Booster Station subdivision, an approximate 4.2-acre tract of land generally located 1,000 feet northeast of the intersection of Alsatian Way and Ray Corbett Drive, Bexar County, Texas. Emily.
Okay, just to get your bearings, this is the Corbett Junior High. This is Ray Corbett Drive, and then this is part of Rhine Valley, and then the subject property here is in green. The proposal is to develop the approximately 4.2 acres into one commercial lot in order to build a City of Schertz potable water storage and pumping station to serve southern Schertz. So the applicant is seeking a waiver to UDC Section 2115.3b in order to not connect to a public wastewater system. Unlike our typical waivers, for something like this with the residential where you're requesting to not connect and they're eventually going to use an on-site sewage facility, for this waiver it is truly just not connecting. There's no plans to use an on-site sewage facility or anything like that. The proposed project with the water storage tank, there is no sewer facility on site, period. There's no need for sewer needs. So Scott McCullen, our project manager with the City of Schertz Engineering, which is here, if in case there's any questions from him, provided this letter indicating that there is no sewer service of any kind on this property in the proposed development. Additionally, the site is located in the Cibolo Creek sewer shed, and if required to extend the existing sanitary sewer from the closest point, would be counterproductive to the sanitary sewer master plan. So just to get your bearings here again, this is the proposed Corbett Booster Station site. And so I have to flip between two pages in our water sewer map book. But if you continue on down Ray Corbett Drive, you can kind of see this red dashed line here. Matches up to this red dash line, and this is the closest sewer connection point. So it's a little difficult since it's on 2 sheets, but it would essentially have to go down Ray Corbett Drive to this section here. The engineering department did provide a recommendation of approval. They reviewed this based on the standard requirements, with the extension being approximately 2,000 feet down Ray Corbett Drive. It is based on that extension length and also the general need of not needing sewer on the property. And staff is making a recommendation of approval for this waiver.
All right, commissioners, comments, questions?
It's taken the city almost a year to find a spot that agrees with Randolph Air Force Base. So I can see where this is needed. We need a tank out there in the south area. I don't see any need for sewer.
I guess my one question would be, future uses. With 4.2 acres of land, there's obviously some space, and if at some point they decided to come in and build a small structure to house some people in there or something, that they would still have to come in and apply for either a septic waiver or to connect to the sewer service, right?
Not with, if y'all approve this waiver, that would, essentially this waiver runs with the property, so it would not. I don't know if there are.
There's a representative from engineering who can answer that question for you as well.
The site was planned to have the elevated storage tank, which is phase 1, and then a 3 million gallon ground storage tank. The site also requires a large detention basin, and there's an existing drainage channel through there, so we're having to maintain that as well. So pretty much all of that 4.2 acres is already planned out. So there's no the only structures that will be there is an eventual pump house, and then the ground storage, and then the elevated storage tank. So nothing that would require to be connected to the sewer.
Can we place conditions on the approval?
I believe so.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that the commission approve the waiver to not connect a public wastewater system for the Corbett Booster Station subdivision, with the provision that if any future development requires sanitary facilities, this waiver, they will be required to connect to I'm not sure how to word it. What I want to say is, yeah, we'll approve it for now, but if you ever put a potty out there, okay, so how do I say that? That's my motion. So.
I guess I would word it, let me think here for a second. Make a motion to approve the application to not connect to the Corbett Booster Station subdivision, with the condition that if further development occurs, that the applicant would have to come in for either an OSSF waiver or to connect to sanitary sewer.
Sounds good.
Okay, so that's the motion. Any other comments or questions?
I have a question. If I'm trying to find the answer, but maybe you know it. Why do we have to go through this? If somebody's going to build something on a plot of land that does not require sanitary sewer, let's say a hay barn on a plot of land, why do we have to go through this? Why do we have to request a waiver? If the building doesn't require sewer and there's no plans on putting sewer, why grant a waiver?
So for the next item for the preliminary plat, for it to technically meet all of our requirements, it either has to have the provisions for sanitary sewer available, or the plans already approved for sanitary sewer, or at least the concept plans for extension, with any kind of easements that are needed or anything like that. Everything has to be accounted for before we bring that preliminary plat forward. Otherwise, it doesn't meet the requirements. So essentially, if we did not bring this waiver, the next item, the preliminary plat, would not meet the requirements for platting.
All right, so we have a motion for conditional approval. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Ray. All right, any other comments or questions? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. 6 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Next item on the agenda, PC 2017-018, consider and act upon a request for approval of a preliminary plat for the Corbett Booster Station subdivision, an approximate 4.2-acre tract of land generally located approximately 1,000 feet northeast of the intersection of Alsatian Way and Ray Corbett Drive, Bexar County, Texas. Emily.
Get your bearings again. This is Ray Corbett, and the subject property is outlined in green. It's currently undeveloped and is zoned public use district. The proposal is to develop this one commercial lot into a potable water storage and pumping station to serve southern Schertz for the city of Schertz. The property has access to a public right-of-way through a 1.85-acre access drainage and water easement that was previously recorded with Bexar County. So it essentially extends this way and then onto the Ray Corbett Drive. So if you'll imagine Ray Corbett, this area here, and it comes, this is the access easement to the property. Future access is planned to be taken off of Ray Corbett Drive. However, at this time, the plan is just to use the access easement. The applicant has submitted a tree affidavit, which indicates that the site does not contain any protected or heritage trees. The site is serviced by a City of Schertz 12-inch water line that will be installed with the development. It's also serviced by CPS, AT&T, Spectrum, and CenterPoint Energy. The site is not currently serviced by a public wastewater system, and y'all did just approve that waiver to not connect. The city engineer has reviewed and approved the preliminary drainage plans, and since the subject property does not have direct access to a public right-of-way, there is no requirements for dedication or sidewalks, so neither of which are being provided with this plat. Scott is still here as a representative from the engineering department for this project, and staff is making a recommendation of approval.
All right, commissioners, comments, questions?
I realize this is still in the planning stages, but something was mentioned to me by an acquaintance. And so I kind of wanted to ask the question, where on those occasions where it's required to, for whatever reason, drain these tanks or let water out of these tanks, where's that water going to go?
I know for sure. I believe that it's going into the drainage area over there that I mentioned. As you can see, this is all set up as a drainage easement. So there's an outfall out of the tank that comes along. The elevated tank will sit approximately right there, and so then there's an outfall that just goes right into this drainage way. For other tank sites like East Live Oak, all those tanks connect into an underground drainage system that then goes out onto Live Oak. It's handled just like into the ditch along Live Oak, and it's handled just like stormwater in the existing bar ditch on Live Oak.
Well, that's exactly the situation that prompted the question. Is that water draining down a public street? So, it's hard to tell from the aerial. Do you know? Does that drainage way? Does it Well, it must turn the corner there. It can't go through the houses. So, okay, thank you.
Okay.
Can you describe the access again?
So it is through a previously recorded access, drainage, and water easement that essentially goes from Ray Corbett through this area here. So you can see on the plot, this actually identifies, this one actually identifies the access, drainage, and water easement that runs adjacent to the property. So at this time, that is the only access point, is through that recorded access easement.
What type of drive is that going to be? Is it going to be concrete, asphalt, rock, dirt?
That we have proposed is 12-inch flex base that's topped with a surface treatment. So that'll just be asphalt on top.
Is it going to be something permanent or just temporary for this operation?
It'll be in place until Ray Corbett Drive extends, if it ever does extend.
So it'll be sufficient for fire EMS to get back there?
Yep. Yeah, they've looked at it as part of the site plan as their access.
Thank you.
Well, that brings up another question again, thinking of the future. No sidewalks now because there's no street, but what happens when the street gets pushed through? Will whoever does that be required to install the sidewalk at that time?
Most likely, yes, or the city. I mean, it is a city-owned property, so the city will come in and build the sidewalk in that section if need be.
I guess then, can you clarify that the current UDC requires sidewalks to be installed on final plat, correct?
When it's adjacent to a public right-of-way. So
Okay. Okay, gotcha.
Since it's only the access.
All right, any other comments and questions? All right, chair's asking for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve PC 2017-018 preliminary plat for the Ray Corbett, or for the Corbett Booster Station subdivision.
All right, I have a motion for approval by Commissioner Outlaw. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Greenwald. Any other comments or questions? Call for a vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye. 6 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Next item on the agenda, public hearing, item 5A, ZC 2018-004, hold a public hearing, consider and make a recommendation on an amendment of Part 3, Schertz Code of Ordinances, Unified Development Code, UDC, to Articles 8, Special Uses and General Regulations, subsection 21.8.2, Accessory Buildings, Uses, and Structures Associated Code of Ordinance Amendment. First item of business is that this was tabled at the August 22nd, 2018 meeting, so ask for a motion to pull this off the table for further consideration.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we untable ZC 2018-004 for further discussion.
All right, have a motion to untable by Commissioner Outlaw. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Breaux. Call for a vote, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye. 6 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Chief.
Hello, Commissioners. Thanks for taking the time to let us come back and talk to you again about sheds tonight. Just to start out with, we wanted to, we've been discussing this since earlier in the summer. We've been through several discussions about this, and, we had many factors to consider as we were going through this, looking at this particular item. obviously health and safety of our citizens and our firefighters are paramount to us. But, we also got to look at property rights, owners' rights. We've also got to look at code enforcement issues. So we had, quite a few things, that we had to balance during this process and while we were looking through this. Early on we talked about some type of fire rating system on the back of the home as well. And, as we started looking at all those options, those require, permitting, they require inspections for an already overwhelmed code enforcement department. So as we went through this process and started trying to, look through this, we didn't feel like from earlier on that, we were ready to institute permitting process back in place either. And so we kind of stepped back and looked at this from a fire department priority, as well as looking at the city's interest, as well as citizens' interest and citizens' interest. So we kind of stepped back and looked at all those. What we kind of come back with looking at is we come up with what this all goes back to is looking at our fire department priorities. And so when we look at that, we look at exposure protection, so minimizing the risk to neighbors. We've talked about that on several occasions as we went through this process, looking at that. Also, we talked a lot about workspace and providing room for our firefighters to operate, get their equipment through during an emergency when we're trying to access the rear of the home. And then we also talked about fire spread. So when a fire occurs in that building or around that home, it can get in the eaves of the houses very easily and spread. So we've kind of talked about all those issues. As you know, we've met with you several times about this. We've also met with council about this a few times. And so we're here tonight just kind of coming back to kind of show you with what we've come up with and what we've put together as our recommendation to you, taking all those items into account that we just mentioned. So I'll turn it over here real quick to the fire marshal to kind of go over what we've come up with.
So the language may look similar to what we had before. Oh, there it is right there. I can see it better. From what the previous UDC read to the difference it is now. Under C, we added, if placed in a side yard, accessory buildings or structures shall set back 5 feet from the common side or common property line for access during emergencies. No accessory structures may be located within an easement. We took out D, we took out G, and we took out I. This does allow a homeowner to put a shed on the side of his house as long as he meets that 5-foot setback from the common property line. The drawing that I have up here now kind of shows that area. It's still the 3 feet on the rear and the sides as long as it's behind the house. On the side of the house, the area in green is go. You can put a shed or accessory structure there. And the red area is the 5-foot buffer of the property lines where you can't put anything. After several meetings with planning and zoning going back and forth, I think this is the best option, like Chief said, that make sure that we get our working space. We still have the 10-foot between houses, and residents are still able to utilize their property as best they can.
Okay, so just to finish up here, I just wanted to say, like I said, taking all the things into account, this is a staff recommendation to approve this updated language in this UDC for accessory structures. And we feel like this kind of balances our fire department priorities with the city's priorities as well as citizens' priorities. We feel like this gives us, by moving that buffer zone out to the property line, we feel like that's going to give us more space to operate. And so that was why we're recommending that change, because there's less chance of there being air conditioning units, piping, plumbing, electrical, water hoses, things like that out towards the property line as they are up closer to the house on all those items. So that's kind of why we went with that, asking for it off the property line. We feel like that's going to give us room to get our firefighters through. It's getting them away from the house still, and it's giving them a minimum of 5 feet to operate to get through that space with their equipment. So that being said, that's I'll entertain any questions that you have.
All right, well, this is a public hearing, so we'll conduct a public hearing first on that. We'll open the public hearing at 6:36 p.m. And so anyone wishing to speak on this item, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Mr. Paulson, you did sign up, so I'll give you first shot at this.
My name is Tony Paulson. I live at 120 Thomas Edison Drive in Schertz. I'm a little confused about this now. I understand that there's a revision to the accessory buildings and such in the setback rules, and I'm curious as to whether that applies to commercial property as well as residential. And the reason I ask is I'm representing the Knights of Columbus here, and as you know, we have a building right across the street. We do fish fries out there the first Friday of every month and every Friday in Lent. These fish fries support our charitable efforts to a great extent. It got to be, over the years, quite uncomfortable out there in the summertime with the heat. So we do this like at 4:35 in the afternoon, and also if it rains, it got pretty uncomfortable. So we've built what we thought would be a portable canopy that we could move from the site of where we do the fish fries and serve the customers back to the rear of our property and anchor it in both locations. But the city of Schertz has told us that that has to be considered an accessory building, not a movable or whatever you want to call it, structure. So where we have it, our building is located, where we have the building and the canopy, we do not have enough room between our property line and the building to have the 10-foot separation and also to have the 5-foot setback for the common property line with the lot next door. We'd like to be able to have this building or this canopy there and to protect our people that are working the fish fries, and still be able to be within the rules of the city. And I don't know if there's any way we can do that, but that's our request, that we have somehow be able to have that protection from the elements and also be able to meet the requirements for the separation from the building and from the property line.
Thank you for that comment. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on this item? All right, Mr. Paulson, I'm sure we'll get one of the staff members to speak with you, probably privately, to address your concerns on that and see what we can do on that. All right, we'll close the public hearing at 6:38. Commissioners, comments, questions?
Well, I'll address Mr. Paulson's question as the previous, as the ex-fire marshal. I've seen what they have down there. And unfortunately, what happens is the rules are written for certain things. And what we're really talking about are storage sheds. But the definition is accessory structures. And so your movable, what I would call a movable carport, gets caught up in those definitions. So, but as the chairman said, hopefully staff will get with you and answer that question for you. Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask just one question. fire chief. And item M, accessory buildings, uses, and structures shall conform to applicable provisions of the building code and fire code. What does that mean?
So this is a planning addition, and it was put in here because obviously we have requirements in building code and fire code that talk about what's applicable, so on and so forth. Because we feel that we're not changing any of the permitting requirements and we're still leaving it as permits are exempt from 120 square feet, so on and so forth, that we want to make sure that as residents read this section, obviously we're going to do some outreach and some other things like that, depending on how this gets approved as it goes through council. As we refer citizens to this section as they read it, we wanted to reinforce that there are certain building code provisions, even in the residential setting, that do apply. While the International Fire Code, in my understanding, does not apply to residential structures, there are building code provisions related to size of structure and distance from property line that potentially do come in. For example, if a shed is 200 square feet or greater and is placed closer than 5 feet to a common property line, which is possible in the backyard under this provision, they would have to come in for a permit because it's greater than 120 square feet. There would also be fire rating requirements on the side adjacent to the property line that is required by building code today. And that is in our current adopted. If you came in with that under our current code, you'd still have to comply with that as well.
Okay. My suggestion would be that this be changed to read applicable provisions of the residential code, building code, and fire code. For just that reason, for 1 and 2 family dwellings, sheds and accessory structures are not regulated. That's the whole problem. They're not regulated by the building code or the fire code. They're regulated by the residential code. And so my concern was here, we were trying to tell them it was subject to, so I think by inserting residential code in there would make sure, I think that's what you intended, was for them to be aware that there are certain requirements, correct?
Yes, and it's actually all adopted codes that we have adopted which apply to these kinds of things, which
And see, that's
for the most part will be minimal. You know, the sheds that we have been talking about through this entire conversation don't really apply to that. But as people look at building workshops, look at building detached garages, other things that we do see on occasion, they do have to come in for a building permit, and they are informed that there are additional requirements.
And that's the other sticky point for the Knights of Columbus, is they're regulated by the building and fire code.
That's correct. Would you be amenable to saying perhaps all building and fire codes that have been adopted by the city, and maybe that way we can do a catch-all as codes change, if things evolve even further?
I just want to clarify that the intent was not to try to make residential storage sheds subject to the building and fire code. The intent was to make the public aware that there are code requirements that apply to these things.
Yes.
So yeah, I'd be amenable to that kind of wording.
Okay.
You know.
So to clarify for our notes for the motion, how are you going to write that language, Bryce?
I'll work on it while we're having the rest of this discussion.
Okay.
I'll bring it back up whenever a motion is made, depending on which way it goes.
Any other questions?
Yes, I need some clarification on, we're removing item D, paragraph D. No accessory building use structure may be closer than 10 feet to the main building. Then in paragraph J, it's allowed within 10 feet if the accessory building use or structure is contiguous with or an integral part of the main building. What exactly does that mean? Does my accessory building have to be attached to my house, which is what contiguous means, or integral? What does that mean? Integral means it's an essential part of my house. It's not really, because it wasn't there yesterday.
So let me read it, but I believe that which one? Show me which one it is again.
It's item H.
Well, it's right there. paragraph D, which we're deleting, it says we can't put a building within 10 feet. Then in H, it says, well, you can, as long as it's contiguous with the existing main building, foundation, or integral.
Right, which means attached or connected to. So a lot of times the pools with the decks are considered, they're considered
Right.
attached, and so that would be considered.
So I want to go to Home Depot and I want to put a shed up. Where can I put my shed 5 feet from my house? It won't necessarily be contiguous, and it won't necessarily be an integral.
Right, but I think this particular section is talking about pools, hot tubs, saunas. It talks about a gazebo here too. Playhouses aren't even, they're not even required to be permitted by building code. So there are actually these accessory structures that are being talked about here specific to those items.
So we're talking specifically about those items. But in the next line, it says an accessory building, use, or structure. So we're back up to sheds again. Unless I'm reading it wrong.
But just so you know, a pool's considered as an accessory structure.
But why are we not talking about sheds in this?
This is the whole section that covers not just sheds. It covers all accessory structures, which means that could be an in-ground pool, a hot tub, a sauna, those kind of things. So those are considered accessory structures in the building code. And they require, so that there's no problems with the foundation, this requires a professional engineer to sign off on that, so to ensure that the movement of those pools and things don't have any negative impact on the foundation of the home. That's basically what most of that section that we're talking about is about.
So when it comes to sheds, and it's in the backyard, I can put it wherever I want?
No, I think they're,
As long as it's not in an easement?
as long as it's not within this 3-foot area here, you can put it anywhere in this hashed area. So it's got to be you can't put it 3 feet from the common property line in the backyard. You can put it up against your house, but in this blue area, you would not be able to put the shed there, but you could put it anywhere else in your backyard.
Okie doke.
Who's gonna sheds are not installed?
It would be the responsibility of code enforcement.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, another
You know,
question.
too, that that's a team effort. It's not just code enforcement. Code enforcement involves all codes, building code, code enforcement, fire code.
We've gotten, one of the big problems that we've been wrestling with as a commission, the staff has been wrestling with, is the lack of permits, or, it comes back to anything that, we can require anything we want, but without somebody having to come in and get a permit, how are we, what plans do we have, if any, to make residents aware of these rules? I know at one time we had talked about public outreach, maybe articles in the Schertz magazine or something similar.
Yeah, I would say just from our discussions, we even brought public affairs into this discussion as well about putting something on the website. We had talked to Bryce and Emily about going out to any storage shed sales in the area and taking some education material out there for them as well. And then it's also come up at our HOA President's Board meeting about putting that information out to remind citizens that they also have to check with their HOA board as well.
Council on the go. We could even, we've done lots of different types of, stakeholder meetings, so we certainly can, reach out to as many organizations as we can. The website definitely will have something specifically designated for this, and we can even put something up. I'm currently working on stuff on the kiosk to have like a screen show or slideshow on our kiosk, so we could add it to something like that where we have it constantly flashing.
I guess my question was going to be, in this section here, you know, the one thing that we don't have, and maybe it's in another section there, about the types of buildings that do require permits greater than 120 square feet. Is that in another section?
That's correct. It's in the Code of Ordinances. It's not in the Unified Development Code. It's under the building section of the Code of Ordinances.
Okay.
I believe it's Chapter 18.
Okay.
Or Article 18.
All right, do we have any other further comments or questions? Please go ahead.
I spent 25 years of my life serving the city and the residents in fire suppression, fire prevention, with the intent of keeping our residents safe, our emergency responders safe, and limiting the best we could property loss and injuries and loss of life due to fire. I really do have mixed feelings about this whole issue. But on the other hand, I have to recognize that, number one, it's not my job anymore. Number two, it's a little bit different world. You know, the shed permit and shed placement, I think, was viewed by many as government overreach. But I've said to a couple people on more than one occasion, I will not sacrifice first responder safety. And I think in listening to the fire chief and the fire marshal and staff, if my friends and compadres of the fire service are happy with this, I guess I need to be too. So with that said, I will move that the commission forward a recommendation of approval to City Council.
And I have the rewrited language if you want that for the motion. To amend Section M to read, accessory buildings, uses, and structures shall conform to applicable provisions of city-adopted codes to include residential and commercial building codes and fire code. With revisions as stated by...
With revisions as...
There we go. All right, we have a motion to recommend approval to council by Commissioner Outlaw. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second by Commissioner Bro. Any other comments or questions? All right, we'll call for a vote.
Aye.
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 Oh,
Commissioner Ray?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5 ayes, 1 no. Motion carries. All right, next item on the agenda, workshop and discussion. 6A, discussion on UDC Section 21.8.2 related to automatic teller machines. Emily.
So I'm actually not up here to talk about ATMs, as exciting as that is. I'm actually here. The Fresenius applicants are present now. They ran into some traffic, ran a little late, and they were wondering if y'all would be willing to go back to the item 4A, the Fresenius Medical Care Subdivision, the preliminary plat, and remove it from the table and rehear that item since they are present.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we reconsider item 4B, or I'm sorry, that would be 4A, the preliminary plat for the Fresenius Medical Care.
All right, we have a motion for reconsideration on item 4B. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, second by Commissioner Greenwald. Call for a vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. 6 ayes, no nays.
For clarification, it was 4A.
4A.
I think I got that at the end.
Yeah. Okay. I guess first of all, does the applicant have any comments or presentation you want to make on this?
Thank you, Commissioner. My name is Walt McMenemy. I'm with Cross Development. We are the preferred developer for Fresenius Kidney Dialysis Centers. I appreciate you bringing this back up. My apologies for being late for the meeting, and I really appreciate it. No comments really, other than to say, we think it's a fairly straightforward as far as a preliminary plat is concerned. We've worked for months to work out the utilities with the city as well as all the third-party utility companies. I wasn't here for Emily's presentation, but I'm sure she did a good job. So if you folks have any questions, if Emily can't answer them, I'm not sure I can answer, but she knows this project inside and out. But either one of us can answer any questions you have, I'm sure.
And I'll just mention, I think the biggest conversation points from the commission was the accessibility on 3009. Comments range with hopefully the exit entrance would be closer or further south toward the end of the property, with the hope that there'd be a shared access driveway. Obviously, it cannot be required under our UDC, but we're looking for the future. And like I said, the opinion is that those properties will eventually be commercial. And we hope that maybe you can take that into consideration, and as you move forward with your site plan on that there might be some opportunity to have some cross-lot linkages as well as a shared driveway.
So we're definitely looking into cross-lot linkages. The property to the north, we have a drainage channel through there. I mean, if they can connect to us, it's going to be a little bit difficult for them, to be honest with you, to do that. But as far as going south, we've already talked to the broker that is handling that property. We don't really have an issue with that at all. We have placed our drive, and TxDOT is actually very comfortable with this placement, kind of at the north end, and there's a reason for that. When you drive this area, the best possible lot for, say, traffic's going southbound here, the best possible exit point from this lot is right here because of visibility and the ability to completely see that intersection and traffic coming towards you. The reason we placed it on the north end is because if you place it on the south end, the visibility around, it's ever so slight curve, but your visibility coming out here is hindered, whereas here it is not. So it's just the best possible place on the lot. However, going forward, we've kind of talked with this broker here, and their expectation, again, they don't know what they're going to do, what their use is, when they're going to do it. But from what I understand, they're comfortable if TxDOT will allow them to have one here or have one off this side street, whatever city agrees to, and then that'll give us complete through access on both lots.
And certainly that's much appreciated that y'all are already aware of that and talking about it, even though it's not required. And I hope you can incorporate that in your
Yes, plan. I think we can. Yes, sir.
All right, commissioners, any other comments or questions for the applicant? All right, and we're looking for a motion.
In 022, the medical care subdivision on East Live Oak and 3009.
All right, have a motion for approval by Commissioner Greenwald. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Bacon. All right, any other comments, questions? All right, call for a vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. 6 ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you guys for coming out. All righty then, back to item 6A, workshop and discussion. 6A, discussion on UDC section 21.8.2 related to automatic teller machines. Emily, try this again.
Okay, so our current UDC language, this is kind of it for ATMs. It states automatic teller machines, drive-through structures are not authorized unless the associated bank occupies a space on the same property and has a valid certificate of occupancy. So this item was requested at the last P&Z meeting, so staff is kind of just going to, this is what our current UDC language is. If y'all want to start the discussion, kind of give us guidance one way or the other of what y'all were wanting to discuss.
All right, and with that, this was requested by Commissioner Bro, so I'll turn that over to you.
Thank you. I'll just ask, and I'll give an example. We have the Evo structure up to the north, the entertainment complex being built up to the north. If one of our local banks, or any bank for that matter, wanted to put an automatic teller machine somewhere in that parking lot, if I read this UDC language correctly, it doesn't permit that. Am I right?
That is correct.
Does staff have any idea why this is in our UDC?
Your guess is as good as ours, other than they didn't want, I can make a random guess. It's unsubstantiated necessarily in what the discussion was. Mr. Greenwald may have some more history on this than I do. I'm sure he does. He can normally give us some
What's the
great
date on that?
Oh, I don't know.
Be careful, Mr. Greenwald.
Not since Lisa and I have been here, so at least 11 years. But my guess would be that, it has to do with potentially having a lot of unmanned ATMs that are sitting outside of businesses or in random places, and just a desire not to have that, I suppose.
Well, I see it as an odd requirement in the UDC, and I also see that it limits services available to our citizens. I know when I drive around Live Oak and Universal City, there's teller machines all over the place. So I have easy access to a number of banks and a number of a lot of access to teller machines. You drive around Schertz, you actually have to physically go to a bank to get some of that. And I see opportunities in Walmart, the Evo Entertainment Complex. People are going to need a lot of money out there. Even having teller machines in the park. Pickle Park, for example. So I'm just wondering why this is in there. And my initial feelings now is that and I'll make a motion for it later, but that we just rescind it in total and just knock it off.
Well, this isn't an action item, but certainly we can go back, and if it's of the consensus of the commission, we can remove it, change it. The thing is I do think if we have something, though, we need to have stacking requirements and make sure it doesn't fall into designated parking spaces and those things. So it's something that we should look at, especially if it's somewhere near a fire lane, those kind of things.
Well, other communities have them, so it's not something brand new. But right. as long as it fulfills the requirements of our Schertz design criteria and so forth. But I would personally like to see us just delete the whole thing and permit these types of structures in Schertz.
It doesn't permit, it doesn't prohibit ATMs within buildings. No. Correct, just the freestanding drive-throughs. Yeah, it does seem to be kind of a, why is the obvious question, but there are a lot of other questions that pop into my mind, and I don't necessarily disagree with doing away with it, but perhaps we'd like to have ask staff to take a look at things that pop into my mind are, what does the police department think about freestanding ATMs? Do they present any problems for them? Lisa, as you said, we require a business to have a certain number of parking spaces, and we certainly wouldn't want to allow them to delete those to put in an ATM. But Commissioner Broad, I think it's certainly worth taking a look at, having staff, put some feelers out there, talk to these other cities that do have them, see if it creates any issues for them, and let staff come back to us with a report saying, yeah, it's not a problem anywhere. So that my suggestion would be to have staff take a look at it and come back to us.
And I would concur on that, is that we're, moving to a society that's more and more mobile, more and more automated. The need for banking branches everywhere is not nearly what it was 20, 30 years ago. It's certainly something for consideration. I think a good next step would be for staff to gather some information on what the requirements are in some of our benchmarks, and come back and with some language and on a suggestion on how we can revise this, whether we would look at removing it totally or modifying it to allow it with certain conditions.
I'm not sure ATMs have too much longer of a shelf life with iPhones and debit cards. So, to me, it's a moot point.
I still use them. But what I wanted to suggest is don't forget stacking requirements.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember our issue with the car wash, and when we looked at the UDC, it only considered 1 or 2 stacking requirements for 1 or 2 different. So, thank you.
Does that work for you, Commissioner Burrow?
Sure.
Okay.
All right. All right, next item on the agenda, tablet training.
While they're passing out your new tablets that you will be viewing all your new agendas on, just so everybody knows, the cases that are on the tablets, these were budgeted for this year, and they'll go along with our new CityView software program. The cases on the outside of them are not new cases, but to get these out to you as quickly as we could, we went ahead and rolled them out with used cases, and new cases will be coming in November, and at that time we'll switch the cases out with y'all, so y'all will get some new cases.
Okay, the first thing that you will see when you open it up is there is a page folded in half. This is a user agreement from the city that you sign that basically says that you are checking this tablet out from us. So as everyone can read those at the end, and Tiffany or I will be collecting them after the meeting, after everybody's had a chance to read through it and sign it. I first wanted to focus on the stapled handout that was given to you. So this is specifically made for y'all on how to access our agendas, where they're going to go, how to save them, and how to even mark them up on the tablet as well. So there's a bunch of really neat features. And so what I was planning on doing, and hopefully this will work out, give it a try, see what happens. All right, it will. Okay, so very first thing, everyone, there's a power button on the top right-hand corner, and everybody should be off. So if you hold it to turn it on, I will go over these instructions, and you can go with me as we go. You'll see the wonderful Apple logo come on. So while they're booting up, it just takes a moment. Okay. So this will work in both portrait mode or landscape mode. They work both ways. Most everyone is relatively familiar with smartphone functionality and items like that, but for those who aren't, power buttons on the top, volume down and up buttons are on the side, and then the only other button on it is the circle button that is here. That is the home button. So the very first thing you'll do when you get a wonderful email from one of the planning staff letting you know that the agenda is ready is you no longer even have to drive down anywhere. What you'll do is just connect to Wi-Fi. You can connect to your home Wi-Fi. These are all programmed to be connected to the city Wi-Fi as well. If you don't have Wi-Fi at your home, you can come up to either City Hall, there's public Wi-Fi, or the library also has public Wi-Fi. And the very first thing is you'll see on your instructions are to touch the Dropbox app, and this will open up Dropbox. All of our agendas will be populated in this location. And so what you'll see, for example, is this one right here at the very top that says today, and it has the P&Z 10/10/2018. And what you will do is you'll select it, and it'll kind of open it up. And then in the top right-hand corner, there's these three dots. You touch the three dots, and you'll go to Export, and then select Copy to Adobe Acrobat. This will either automatically open Adobe Reader, or if you have Adobe Reader, you can open it that way as well. And so then here is our agenda, and this is tonight's agenda, as you can see, with all related documents. One of the really neat features is it's all expandable, so as we get to, those very hard to read tiny notes on the plat pages that we send you. Yes, sir.
Sorry. It says welcome to Acrobat Reader, but it wants me to sign in with Facebook or Google. So X, okay. All right.
Okay, perfect. And so one of the items that it may open up to is this screen as well, which is part of the Adobe screen, and you want to make sure that you're selected on local, because what will happen otherwise is as you type in your comments, if you're in like Dropbox, that will stick in the Dropbox and everybody has your comments, and we don't want to do that because that can be a violation of both Open Meetings Act and also does not put your own personal notes in it. So just make sure it says local there. Again, you can select your agenda. And one of the really neat things in here is as we get to these various different size items, we do build the agendas digitally. If you've ever gone on and looked, they're built in native size, so all the PDFs are in true 18 by 24 inch or 36 by 24 inch, depending on what they are. So they are formatted to large format sheets. So when we normally print them for you, they're super tiny like this and hard to read. The great part is it's not a scan or anything, and so you can zoom in almost infinitely and get clarity in what all of your notes say. One of the other features that you'll see on here is this button here that has the little bubble and what looks like a little pin. This brings up a series of tools. There are a number of things you can do with these tools. You can potentially highlight sections of staff reports that you may be interested in. So we can select the highlighting tool, and we just use your finger, and you highlight kind of whatever you want, and it will highlight it. Another option that you want is maybe, oops, let me get back out of that. We can bring up a note function, and so if you tap it again, it will turn it off, and so you don't have it. You can then select the comment if you just hold it, and you can clear them out as necessary. As you have other items or you have questions, let's say maybe that highlighting is less appropriate on, if you're wondering where access or something like that is, what you can actually do is tap the little drawing tool, and you can just draw on it. Like, what's this here? Things like that. So this will be kind of full annotation for you all as you go, and you can save it locally on your machine as we populate these. They'll also be available in the archive system that will be in here as well, and we'll go through that as we start populating some of these agendas and things like that, because one of the items that we've heard from you all is, well, what agenda was that on? Let me go back through all of these, those kinds of things, so that will be in here. Additionally, this will work well with our new, as we move into purchasing agenda software that was approved in the budget. We have not selected a software yet, but as we get into that, one of the items was that we have been looking to make sure that they are formatted appropriately for iPads and things like that, so that y'all can use this function. This will be a huge time saver for y'all, a lot less paper for staff, a lot more time and effort can be given to other items than just making copies and collating paper. So with that, again, you can also save these items, and it will save it onto the your local copy. And so then as you click done, you can again go to back, and those will be all of the files that you have saved locally onto your tablet. Are there any questions that anyone has? I know this is new to a lot of people, and we're happy to work with you. The library, if you're still used to hold packets, you can always go to the library and print a packet.
I have a question.
Yes.
If I lose or intentionally damage and I'm responsible, what are the reimbursement charges and or the disciplinary action?
Well, there won't be disciplinary action because you're a planning and zoning commissioner. Well, I'm assuming there wouldn't be. I suppose if you intentionally damage it, city council could always remove you from the commission. But this is the same form that we use for all city employees as well for checkout of digital devices, the same thing that city council signed as well.
So back.
I guess that the reimbursement charges
Or cost of the device.
The drawing tool?
Yes.
How did you do that?
So if you select it, and we go to the little bubble as well, and I think I can even still delete it. I think I can select it and delete it if my memory serves me, or there may be an eraser. So the drawing tool is a little pin, and you tap it, and you wait, and it says tap and drag to draw. And so there you go. And then I believe you just click save, or you click cancel. If I click cancel, it goes away. And I will have to remember how to delete. There we go. So you just hold and select.
Okay.
It will go by session, not by stroke. So if you just save it every page that you do, then it will just save the marks that you made on that page if you use the draw tool. And then again, I can delete it. I can change the color. I can change the thickness as well. But it's by yes. So one of the other items is text. And so you can tap the T. This is the add text button. The other one is strike through text, which is more of an editing function. I'm hoping that we're not using that one as much, but you want to add text as well. And you can tap where you want to add, and then it brings up a little keyboard. You say what you want to add. What does this mean? And then you can save it, and it pops up there in the text. And again, I can then take this and I can move it around as I want. I can adjust the font size, make it bigger. I can drag the dialog box to be larger. We can move it around. Let's put it right there. All kinds of neat things. And as you have questions, again, please feel free to call staff. We're happy to help you as you go. But we are hoping that this will make everything significantly easier for you all, especially as we move into our CityView software, because staff will no longer be requiring or accepting paper plans after a little while. Well, we won't be requiring them kind of day one once we go live, and then we won't be accepting them after a certain time period. So we'll be moving to all digital review, and so everything will be kept in native formatting as we go through and build agenda packets and things like that. So that's very excited about this. We're hoping you're very excited about this as well. Nick passed out chargers. We'll probably also go ahead and post a copy of these into the Dropbox as well for you, just in case you lose them. You can then pull them back up to the Dropbox.
And for anybody who wants to sit down individually with one of the planners or staff to go over how to use it, give us a call. We'll set up a time. You come in and sit down and go over it with you, even if that means it takes several times to come in when the agendas come in, because we want everybody to feel comfortable using them.
Absolutely.
Right, I guess the only other thing, it didn't touch on it here, but these are city-issued
They are.
things, and so that anything that you do on it personally is also subject to open records.
Absolutely is.
Information, so.
Yes, I would encourage you to use them for city-related items only. So that's what they're intended for. Again, if you have questions or are searching through our UDC, we'll probably send all of the commissioners out some helpful links that you can kind of save as you start building the browser, looking through some of that. Our quick link to our UDC, quick link to the homepage, those kinds of things. Because again, the nice thing on these also is they will interact well with Municode Online, which is where our UDC is held, and it's very searchable now, the way that Municode is set up. And so it should be very, very easy for everyone to search through code sections or say, wait, where was that again? And not have to flip through and manually do it. In fact, in the office, all of the planners are using our digital UDC, and I think we only take the paper UDC when we go to meetings, and we're actually phasing that out because Emily and Nick recently, as well as Tiffany recently, also got a tablet device so that we will be using the same things that you're using as far as tablet technology. It's a little different tablet, has a little more functionality for some office-related.
Did you mention the agenda software too?
Yes, and so we have agenda software that we're working on right now. We haven't selected one to date. We have been investigating a number of them, but this is an item that will work out very well for that. The agenda software is intended to help speed up our efficiency in building agendas and going through the approval process, because as everyone knows, or hopefully everyone knows, agenda items are often read by multiple people through a hierarchy before we're allowed to publish them all out, so that we make sure that things are correct and there's not weird items in there. And so the agenda software will help us with that, and there's some really neat perks about agenda software we've been looking at, such as the ability to search across multiple agendas or all agendas in the system. So you were like, oh, when was this plat? I know it was Winter Hill plat, but when did we hear that one? You can just type in Winter Hill, and everything that in any agenda that keyed Winter Hill will pop up. Those kinds of really neat functionality that is designed for the end user as well of the agenda software. There's some neat items. The agenda software also is looking to bookmark agendas. So I know some of you, especially have been on the commission for a while, have seen humongous packets. We send out the what I like to call the big envelopes instead of the regular envelopes for those really long packets. The agenda software will actually create bookmarks and all of that. So as you're going through the PDF, you can just select the item and it will drop you directly to it. There's a lot more functionality that will add into the PDF than what we're capable of doing currently.
And the agenda software is intended to support the entire city, including the city council. So every board and commission is going to be going to this new agenda software.
Will the UDC be on here at some point so that we can reference that?
So the UDC is online currently, and what I will do is I'll send out tomorrow or day after. What we'll do is we'll send out an email to all the commissioners with some helpful direct links to a variety of things. I believe also our interactive zoning map is optimized for mobile viewing as well. So we'll have some of those quick links, and we'll probably toss out a little way that you can copy and paste and save them as bookmarks into the Safari browser, which is the internet browser on this, so that you don't have to remember or go to the home page every single time and kind of scroll through it, but you can just use those bookmarks to get you to those quick locations.
Okay.
So yes, both the UDC and the full City Code of Ordinances are both codified online in Municode. Because we are no longer, we keep, I think, one copy in our entire department that's updated via Municode in paper copy. The rest of the time we are using the digital. It's very, very easy to use and navigate as well as search through, which in our UDC can be a complicated item at times.
Also, this may not be a big deal, but the date received on here is September 6th. So
yeah, so feel free to scratch through it and put it as the 10th. Absolutely. Not a problem. I think we had them printed early in the week. Yes. So, because we keep those on file for our IT department, will keep them on file. So if you ever take it out of the case, you'll realize also there's a little sticker on the back that says Property of City to Schertz and has a barcode on it. Yeah, 10. Anything else? All right, so that's tablet training.
Move on to the next item. All right, requests and announcements. Request by commissioners to place items on a future agenda. Do we have anything, commissioners? All right, announcements by commissioners. All right, just a couple things. The other day I was invited to go speak in front of the Webelos 2 Cub Scout pack about planning in the city. It was really kind of cool. It's quite a challenge to bring this terminology down to the 5th grade level, but they seem to be pretty interested in it. And then the other thing, if staff's not going to announcement, that this is Emily's last meeting as Emily Grovey. She's getting married, and she will be coming back to us under a new identity here at our next meeting. All right, announcements by city staff.
I do have one thing. With the APA approaching, I believe you received some information in your packet. And I'm not sure if any of you were planning on riding with staff, Mr. Ray. So on Wednesday morning, we will be leaving the office at 9 o'clock. so if you could come in sometime between 8 and 9, we will be leaving at that time. We'll make our way to Galveston. We'll stop for lunch somewhere, and we already have coffee. Now the donuts, I'll have to put on my calendar, but we will have coffee for you, and I'll try to make sure. If not, we'll stop at Royal Donut on the way out.
There we go.
Bryce, do you have anything else? Emily, Nick?
All right, commissioners, anybody have anything else? All right, meeting's adjourned, 7:25.